Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with John, talking Steelers football. I'm your host, John, and I am excited about another episode as we come back again after a Steelers view. Kudos to the Steelers. Came away with a victory, big win over the Miami Dolphins on Monday Night Football. A lot of stuff happened on Monday night that we could talk about and go over. But the major thing is that, in the words of Mike Tomlin, a football mission was accomplished. The Steelers won the game, and they did it pretty handily. The score was 28-15. They gave up a couple garbage touchdowns at the end of the game, really pretty much just letting the clock run out. But nonetheless, they dominated that game and came away with the victory. The Steelers are now 8-6, still in control of their own destiny in terms of playoffs. The Steelers are first place all by themselves in the AFC North. Baltimore is one game behind them because Baltimore did win this past week against the Bengals. So the Steelers are 8-6. Baltimore is 7-7. The Steelers have the Detroit Lions coming up on this Sunday in Detroit. That's going to be a very good game. It's going to be a very tough game for them. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. The Ravens play the New England Patriots, and then they play the Green Bay Packers before they come to Pittsburgh for the final game of the year. And so hopefully the Steelers, again, they control their own destiny, and hopefully they can just, do what they need to do to secure a playoff spot as we come down to the last 3 weeks of the season and not have to depend on other people. That's always the worst. Even players say that it's always worse. It's always the worst when you're sitting around waiting on, somebody else to do for you what you could have did for yourself. And so hopefully they take care of business like they did this past week, last Monday night against the Miami Dolphins on Monday Night Football. So let's get right into it. Again, a couple of things to talk about. I want to highlight a few things that were pretty cool Monday night. This past weekend, the Steelers were inducting three uh, great Steelers into the Hall of Honor, the Steelers Hall of Honor. They do this every year. I think they've been doing it for the last 9 years. But some of the qualifications, I understand that in order to be eligible for the Hall of Honor is that you would have had to have retired at least 3 years ago, and you would have had to have made significant contributions to the team when you did play. And I think there's a minimum amount of years that you have to play, at least 1 or 2 years, and made like a significant contribution to the team. And so this year's Hall of Honor inductees was Joey Porter Sr., who was a great outside linebacker back in the early 2000s. Again, he was the emotional leader of that team. All of them said, he was the leader. He's the one who kept them fired up. He's the one who kept them accountable. But what I loved about Joey Porter, as much as people want to say he had a big mouth and he talked a lot, he always backed it up. He never went out there and talked trash and put his foot in his mouth to the point where he had to eat humble pie. Joey Porter always backed up his trash talking, especially if y'all remember in Super Bowl 40. Man, I mean, aside from some of the great leadership stuff he did for Jerome Bettis, everybody wearing a Notre Dame jersey, letting Bettis run out the field by himself, since it was his last game in Detroit. But he talked trash on the Seattle Seahawks tight end that week and called him soft, like called him all kind of names. And, even Bill Cowher was like, man, like, did you have to say all that? And I told y'all not to say nothing in the media, but Joey, he just got a mouth and he's going to do it anyway. But you know what? In the Super Bowl, he backed it up because it showed just how soft that tight end was. That tight end had a chance to score a touchdown. And he dropped the pass. That tight end had a chance to score. He had a chance to catch a pass. He was wide open and he dropped it scared. Joey Porter, I told y'all, he was soft. He was soft. So he always backed up his words, man. Joey Porter was a great linebacker in the Steelers' traditional linebackers. He took over for Jason Gilton, who was their all-time sack leader at the time. And he took over. He didn't pass Jason Gilton, but for them 7 or 8 years that he played for the Steelers, man, Joey Porter was that dude. He was the epitome of that outside linebacker. And then, he came back to Pittsburgh and began coaching outside linebackers for Keith Butler when he was the defensive coordinator under Tomlin. And now, he's a forever fan because not only was he a Steeler, but now his boy is a Steeler. His son is a Steeler, Joey Porter Jr., who's the, young corner that we got in the draft a couple years from Penn State. So They honored Joey Porter Jr. Then they honored Marquise Pouncey, who was a center for 9 years under the Steelers. For the Steelers, Pouncey was a Pro Bowler every single year that he played. Even the year he got hurt, he was a Pro Bowler, and just one of those athletic centers who can do it all, can pull, can run. I mean, they were showing highlights of Pouncey, and this dude, this is the center. This dude, as the center, has to make the calls on the line, snap the ball, and then block whatever he has to block. But there was highlights of him 30, 40 yards down the field, pulling and getting out in front of plays and stuff like that. The dude was just athletic as could be. He was good, man. He was everything that we needed him to be in the lineage of the centers that played for the Steelers. And, we start with, of course, Mike Webster, maybe the greatest of all time. They had Dermontti Dawson, who also went into the Hall of Fame. Jeff Hardings, even though he didn't go into the Hall of Fame, Jeff Hardings was a solid center for those Super Bowl years for Ben in the mid 2000s. And then, of course, Pouncey, and now we got Zach Frazier. But anyway, Pouncey went into the Hall of Honor. Kudos to him. And then, of course, the third and final guy was Ben Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger went into the Hall of Honor for the Steelers. 18 years played in the NFL for Pittsburgh Steelers. Never in 18 years, never had a losing record. This guy never, ever seen orchestrated a team where his team had a losing record. And it was interesting. I'm gonna get to the game in a minute, but it was interesting to realize some of the stats that Ben has that we take for granted as Steeler fans, and some fans don't even know. Ben Roethlisberger has more 500 passing games than any quarterback in NFL history. He leads the NFL with 500-yard passing games. Nobody has done it more times than Ben. He's the only NFL quarterback to throw for 6 touchdowns in back-to-back games. I'll never forget that year that he did that. His first game was against the Indianapolis Colts. Him and Andrew Luck was going at it, but Ben was hurling that ball, man. 6 touchdowns that game, and then they turned around and played the Ravens the very next week, and they did 6 more against the Ravens. 12 touchdowns in 2 games. That's pretty dynamic. For him to do. For him to go. As his rookie year, 2004. He wasn't even supposed to play his rookie year because they had Tommy Maddox, but Maddox got hurt and comes in and never lost a game. Only rookie in the history of the NFL to never lose a game in his rookie season. And then his second year goes to Super Bowl and wins a Super Bowl. Ben, man, great career. Two-time Super Bowl winner. Arguably, he should have been the Super Bowl MVP of Super Bowl 43. I mean, that comeback drive that he engineered to get that last second touchdown at San Antonio Holmes. He should have been the Super Bowl MVP that year. That was unfortunate they gave it to San Antonio Holmes, but at any rate, Ben made that drive, man. He hit plays, he scrambled as he normally does, scrambled, got away. He was masterful on that final drive against the Arizona Cardinals in Super Bowl 43 that got the Steelers their 6th Super Bowl win. And then again, he played in Super Bowl 50 or Super Bowl 50, I think it was, I forget the number of the Super Bowl, but the one against the Green Bay Packers that Aaron Rodgers beat them in Dallas, and could have had 7 Super Bowls. I won't even get into how they lost that game. But at any rate, Ben Roethlisberger goes into the Hall of Honor. Just a great career, man. That killer B years of the mid 2000s or the 2010s, with Ben, Bell, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown. It was just that offense right there. Just so y'all know, that offense under Todd Haley that everybody seems to kind of crucify as the offensive coordinator for the Steelers at that time, that offense was the best statistical offense that in Steelers history. Ben and Antonio Brown had the best stats of any offense in Steelers history. I'm a 4,000-yard passer, 1,000-yard rusher, and a 1,000-yard receiver. 2-3 times they've done that. They did that together. So it's unfortunate though that they could never get over the hump because they couldn't beat Brady. That was Brady's years. It's just unfortunate. Ben, he had to go up against Brady, man, and it wasn't just Pittsburgh. Nobody could beat Brady. I mean, the dude got 7 Super Bowls himself. So it's just unfortunate that we could never get over the hump because we couldn't beat Brady. But at any rate, great career. Glad they honored all 3 of those guys. Kudos to them. We're going to the Hall of Honor. Ben, I'm sure 2027 will be going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a first-time Hall of Fame, my first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm positive that he's going to get that nod based off of some of the stuff I just mentioned. That was going on this weekend. Halftime, they did a halftime show. They did a halftime show to recognize those guys, and that had the crowd pumped. All the old Steelers was there. I mean, everybody was in attendance. Some of the big names that was there. Of course, Bill Cowher was there. Coach Cowher, Kevin Colbert. The former GM. All of the old guys was there. Mel Blount. Mel Blount was there. I seen some of the guys that played with them, Casey Hampton, Brett Kiesel, James Ferrier, Levon Kirkland, he was there. Who else did we see that was there? Some of the old guys. Um, Ryan Clark was there due to he works for Monday Night Football, so he was there, but for both working and in support of them. So there was a lot of people there. All the offensive linemen was there. Alejandro Villanueva, David DeCastro, they all came in to support Pouncey and Ben. So to have all those guys there, I'm sure it did something for the morale of the team that actually had to play a game on a Monday night against the Miami Dolphins. So let's talk about the game. So I ain't gonna lie to y'all. This game, anybody who watched it, I was there. It was a snooze fest. The first half. I mean, they didn't do nothing. The score was literally 0-0 the first quarter. I mean, Miami did get a field goal in the second quarter. They went up 3-0. And so it was pretty boring. I mean, only one highlight that you could really speak to in the first quarter or so, quarter and a half was, which was nice to see, was James Pierre was out. Corner was out for this game. He didn't play. And Asante Samuel, the dude that we picked up a couple weeks ago and put him on the active roster, hoping that we can, get something out of him because that boy was a baller for the Chargers. And we signed him, and he ended up starting on Monday night for James Pierre's. Him and Porter was our starting corners, and great for him, man. I mean, like the first third down pass, Tua tried to go deep on him to Waddle, and Asante Samuel picked him off, so got an interception, on his first start as a Pittsburgh Steeler. So that was cool to see him get that. But that's pretty much the only highlight that happened in the first quarter and a half. One of the things that I was excited about is that things started to pick up towards the end of the second quarter. So, as I told y'all before, the Steelers love to do this deferment when they get the coin toss. If they win it, they defer, which means that they give the ball to the opposing team's offense first, so that the Steelers could get the ball at halftime, after halftime, right? And so that's what they did. And the reason why they do that is statistics show that if you can somehow or another double dip and score, which means before the half is over, you score, but then after the half is over, you score again. I think the percentage is like 64% that you have as a 64% chance of winning the game if you can do that. And so the Steelers like to try to do that. They haven't been as successful this year in doing that. I think maybe one other time they were able to do it. Monday night would change all of that because right on the drive towards the end of the second quarter going into halftime, the Steelers was able, it was 3-0. The Steelers was able to put together a little drive and push the ball down the field, got the ball down the field, and the Steelers was able to score on a 1-yard touchdown run by Connor Hayward with the tush push, or they call it the Pittsburgh shove, right? Let's make sure we keep that rolling. The Pittsburgh shove, not the tush push. That Philadelphia had their corny name, the tush push. We got the Pittsburgh shove, right, or the Steelers shove, one of the two. We can see what's up with that. But anyway, score was 7-3 at halftime. Connor Hayward with that touchdown, and right after halftime, after all the big festivities of honoring the Hall of Honor guys, the Steelers came out and they put together a masterful drive. It was like they went into halftime and made some adjustments on offense because the offense wasn't doing nothing hardly. And be quite frank with you, Aaron Rodgers was playing pretty bad in that first quarter. So, I mean, again, I don't know what his problem is. Sometimes he throws balls up to the ground, like, man, what's going on? Are you having a senior moment or something, man? All that gray hair and, being old, let me stop. I got gray hair in my chin just like he do. But anyway, he be having some senior moments, I think, man, throwing the ball into the ground on third down and not complete passes. But, I heard a soundbite from Cam Hayward said that he said, we check Aaron too. When he's stinking up the joint, we let him know. So I'm assuming they let him know at halftime, man, you was stinking up the joint, bro. Get your act together. Because in the second half, he came out and, I mean, he balled like, We expect him to see like the Aaron Rodgers that we have watched over the years, especially when he beat us in the Super Bowl when he was a Packer. But anyway, first drive of the second half, the Steelers went right down the field. They ran the ball. Remember I said that a couple weeks ago. They run the ball down their throat. They did to Miami what Miami was doing to other people. Because Miami came into this game, y'all. They won 5 out of 6. They won their last 4, and they was running the ball really, really well with their running back A-Chain. The Steelers did what they did. They had a long run. Kenny Gainwell, man, he had a really good game. 126. He had 126 all-purpose yards, but he had a long game on that first drive for 38 yards. The Steelers ran a couple other times, got some successful runs to keep the drives alive and sustained. And they ran it so well on that drive that now, I mean, when you run it well, now your safeties are creeping up, right? Because they're fearful, that you're gonna pop another run on them after Gainwell had that 38-yard, and now the safeties is creeping up. And remember, I told y'all that's the trick. When you run the ball well, then that opens it up for what Aaron Rodgers does best. Aaron Rodgers is the master of play action. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game with play action. And man, opened up like it parted like the Red Sea for them. They ran the ball well, got all the way down to the 19-yard line, and Aaron Rodgers hits his brand new wide receiver, the boy that we signed that he used to play for him, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. It was a play action pass, and he was just doing a little crosser. But because of the play action, everybody was running to the ball, looking for the running back to get the ball, left Scantling wide open in the end zone for a 19-yard touchdown pass. The Steelers immediately go up 14-3. So that was good. That was big for them to be able to come out of halftime and get that score. Got a touchdown before halftime, got a touchdown after halftime. It's 14-3. And, the Steelers is rolling. They dominate. The defense is dominating. Again, y'all, Miami has been running the ball better than anybody in the league in the last 4 weeks. And wouldn't you know it, I bet you they thought they was going to feast on us this game, right? I bet you they thought let's hand the ball off to Devin A-Chain and let him run with that 4.25 speed and just run all over the Steelers, who gave up 200 yards last week to the Baltimore Ravens, gave up almost 300 yards to the Buffalo Bills. The Steelers have been just leaking in that run defense all year long. So I'm sure Miami had aspirations and goals that they was going to run over the Steelers. But do you not know that even a defense that didn't even have their best player, TJ Watt, who was out, we'll talk about that in a minute too, he was out for this game. The Steelers held the Miami Dolphins to 63 yards total rushing. Let me say it again. 63 yards total rushing for the game. They did not allow the team, let alone an individual, to rush for 100 yards or more than 100 yards. And come on, defense. Come on. Stepped up big time. That was a big time game for the defense. Man, they did their thing. They did their thing. Hats off to them, to especially the guys who stepped in for TJ Watt, like Jack Sawyer, number 33, who's just a rookie. Outside linebacker DeMarvin Leal, who has been on the practice squad. They called him up so we could have some depth. Nick Herbert, he stepped in. Unfortunately, he got a hamstring injury. Hope he's okay. If he's not, he may not play next week against the Lions. But all 3 of those backup guys, of course, and then with Highsmith, they stepped in really well for Watt and played those edges really well to help stop the run. And then those inside guys, hats off to Malik Harrison. We got him back, number 50. That's why they signed him. For all of y'all who was wondering why did they let Landon Roberts go, well, because they knew they had Malik Harrison, who was also a run-stopping linebacker, right, and younger than Roberts. And so, he had a heck of a game stopping the run. But, they held him at 63 yards. 63 yards rushing, and that just allowed the Steelers to really dominate this game in a way that they can go up on them 14-3. So it was 14-3 after halftime. Then the Steelers came back again. This time, man, what a great play! This is my favorite play of the game, and this is why I'm wearing as you can see, is why I'm wearing my Keller Rush DK Metcalf jersey, because man, what a great play by DK Metcalf. Rodgers hits Metcalf over the middle. Imagine that. He threw the ball in the middle of the field, but he hits Metcalf in the middle of the field. And man, DK caught that ball. And don't get me wrong, man, I love Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's my dude, man. I'm so sad to see him in that white, stupid Dolphins uniform, man. He's a Steeler, man. He deserved to be a Steeler. And you could tell that dude looked like he was feeling some kind of way. He took a picture afterwards and had his helmet on, probably because he was crying, man, because he sorry with that sorry team in Miami and missing all the fun here in Pittsburgh. But anyway, man, back to the play. Cat catches the ball over the middle and just takes his hand and just smacks Minka all over. Move out the way and breaks the tackle, heads to the end zone, scores on a 28-yard touchdown pass. And that's the kind of play that we expect from Metcalf, man. Big, physical, fast, man. He did his thing. And so the score was 21-3 in the third quarter. Steelers again just dominating. They was dominating. Rodgers was looking good. He was getting his flow in that second half. He was coming on. Start completing passes. I think he had somewhere like 12 passes he completed in a row. He was getting other people involved. He got Freiermuth involved. Freiermuth was finding zones, which I'm glad because I'm like, stop letting Freiermuth. Freiermuth is not a tight end who can run away from a guy or get open with just pure athletic ability. Freiermuth is a guy who knows his limitations physically or athletically, and so he uses his smarts. He gets open in zones, and that's when you got to get him. And that's what Aaron was doing. He hit him a couple times in the zone, caught a couple passes to get him involved. Then, some of the other guys, of course, MSV, he scored a touchdown. Adam Thielen, I think he caught one pass, but what you've seen from Adam Thielen was, not necessarily pass catching, but you've seen him blocking. He had some real good blocks in the run game, especially on the last touchdown, where after the Steelers had got a sack on Tua Tagovailoa, they got a sack on him, got a punt. Then Aaron took him down the field, hit Freiermuth for like a 22-yarder, and the Steelers got to like the 14-yard line. And I know they drew up this play on purpose because they was trying to get all of the former Dolphins guys a chance to get off on the Dolphins team, especially Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey got a sack early in the game that they did a corner blitz, not a corner blitz, a safety blitz because he's a safety, but they did a safety blitz and he was able to sack Tua, to get some stats. And then on this drive, this final drive, well, it wasn't the final drive, but this drive that they scoring drive that they had, they did a sweep with Jonnu Smith, the tight end. They did a pitch sweep to the right. And man, he took off. He was gone, 14 yards, round the right end for a touchdown. Steelers scored 4 consecutive touchdowns on 4 consecutive drives. That's the first time they've done that since Ben Roethlisberger was quarterback. That's the drop that the offense has been in. They have not scored 4 consecutive touchdowns in a row in over 8 years. So kudos to them. Offense looked good. Rodgers looked good. He did his thing. He got guys involved. Another thing that we found out statistically that has never been done is you had 2 tight ends, and first time in the history of the NFL, 2 tight ends score a rushing touchdown. That happened with Connor Hayward with the Pittsburgh shove on the first touchdown before halftime, and then Jonnu Smith with this 14-yard touchdown around the right end. So the score was 28-3, game over. Like I said, they scored. I ain't really need to talk about it. Ain't no need to waste no more time talking about it. They scored a couple touchdowns. It was garbage touchdowns. The Steelers was really just giving up cushions so that they can run the clock out, and that's exactly what they did. They, tight end Darren Waller, their new acquisition, he came out of retirement to play for them, caught a couple touchdowns, but at any rate, Steelers won 28-15. Some highlights of the game would go to, offense, again, kudos to Aaron Rodgers. He came back in the second half and really did really well, had good stats. He finished with 23 for 27, had 224 yards, 2 touchdowns. His passer rating was 125.9. That's the best that he's had in years. Aaron Rodgers did really good. So want to shout out Kenneth Gainwell. Jalen Warren, the starting running back, he was hurt. He wasn't hurt. He was ill. Said he had some sort of illness, like probably a flu bug or something like that, where he had to have a lot of fluids in him that morning. So his strength wasn't as, probably as good as it needed to be. But, no need to worry about that because Gainwell, he did his thing. He had 13 rushes for 80 yards. He had that big 38-yard run. He had some really nice runs to keep the chains moving. I like his vision. He's fast. He runs a 4.3 in the 40. Gainwell, as everybody's been saying this week, he has earned himself a big contract. And I'm just hoping that the Steelers, they take care of business and re-sign him, which I think they will. I mean, because, like I said, we see the two-headed monster, and how effective they could be with him and Warren, complementing each other really, really well. And in the NFL, you need that today, right? You need that. You need to have 2 capable guys. And we got 3 capable guys. We got the rookie, Caleb Johnson, in case one of them get hurt. What the team we're gonna see this week, the Detroit Lions, they feature a double-headed monster as well, and David Montgomery, number 5, their running back, and then their superstar, Jahmyr Gibbs, who is just the second coming of Barry Sanders, if you will. Man, that dude is awesome. We'll talk about him in a minute. But anyway, highlight, again, Rodgers, Gainwell, DK Metcalf, he had 3 catches for 55 yards with that big 28-yard touchdown pass where he just pretty much abused Minka, just made Minka's day coming home. Just made it, man, made an embarrassment of him. But yeah, Metcalf had a good game. All the receivers, again, Thielen, he only had 1 catch. Valdez Scantling, he only had 1 catch, but that was a touchdown. But those guys did other things to contribute to the win. On defense, again, just can't say enough about those outside linebackers. Those 3 outside linebackers who filled in for Watt, Sawyer, Herbig, and DeMarvin Leal. Great job by them being able to, keep, like Thomas said, the standard to standard. They didn't do a, TJ Watt stuff, get sacks and all that kind of stuff, but they helped stop the run. I can't stress that enough. 63 yards for a team that was getting over 160 yards on average over the last 4 or 5 games. To hold them to 63 yards was big. It was big for Pittsburgh. And I thought the defense did well, was not only stopping the run, but they did well on 3rd down. Remember, I've been telling y'all, like, that's been their struggle all year, is not having the ability to get off the field on 3rd down. Their 3rd down efficiency on defense has been bad. Teams have been able to do it, have been able to get 3rd downs over 50% of the time. But on Monday night, the Dolphins was only 2 for 8 on 3rd down, 25% successful rate. And so, Steelers defense, they did their thing, man. They really did. And then again, just, some individual players too, those 3 guys. But I have to give kudos to the old gray beard veteran in Cam Hayward. Cam had a really good game. He had a sack. He had tackles for losses. He really was dominating that left side of their offensive line. They typically were running to the right side of the Steelers, running to the team's left side, but the Steelers' right side of their defensive formation, which is on Cam Hayward's side. Baltimore tried to do that. They had success doing it, but Cam must have answered the call. I mean, must have had to have some accountability and lit a fire under him, because he was stopping stuff from coming out there. And you would think that would be the case, right? You got Cam out there, plus you got Highsmith. Y'all both out there, on that edge, man. You got to set the edge. So Cam, did a really good job of stopping the run and putting pressure on Tua. And then Patrick Queen had a really good game too, man. He had a lot of tackles. He had 2 tackles for loss. He had a really big tackle for loss on 3rd down, like 3rd and 1. Hit the guy in the backfield for a big loss. He had combined 10 tackles altogether. Queen had a really good game. You didn't, getting the guys in the secondary. You didn't hear Joey Porter's name at all on Monday night. You didn't hear anything about Joey Porter. You know why? Because he was doing his job. So kudos to Joey Porter. Kudos to Asante Samuel. Asante Samuel did give up one of those touchdowns to Darren Waller. But again, Asante Samuel was 5'10", 5'11". Darren Waller was 6'5", 6'6". It was a really easy jump ball for him to catch that touchdown. I blame the safety underneath for not giving Samuel help. But anyway, it didn't matter. It was garbage anyway. But other than that, Samuel did well. He got his interception. Them safeties, again, you don't hear nothing about them because they're stabilizing that secondary. Jalen Ramsey and Kyle Duggar, those guys have solidified that safety spot back there, and we want to shout them out as well. So again, defense did really well. Those are my highlights. I don't have any lowlights. There's nothing that I could think of that was negative about this game. This was one of those dominant performances. Oh, I will say this, another highlight, special teams. Ben Skoranek, number 15, big guy, big blonde dude. Man, what a great special teams guy he's become. He's our gunner. He gets down there, makes tackles, and what a great play he made in the 4th quarter where we punted the ball, and he was able to tip that ball from going into the end zone and pin them at the 3-yard line. That was a big play by Skoranek. And can't say enough about his play all year. That's why he is the leading special teamers for the Pro Bowl. And I think the Pro Bowl voting ended, so he's probably going to go to the Pro Bowl as a Steelers special team guy. So we're appreciative of Ben Skoranek. that was the highlights from that game. Again, the Steelers win 28-15, big win over the Miami Dolphins on Monday Night Football. And again, can't stress enough how dominant that defense was to really make that offense of the Miami Dolphins look like they were bad. And it didn't look like they had won 5 out of 6 games or won the last 4 games or ran the ball over 160 yards. But the Steelers made them look bad. And, again, we give credit where credit's due. Hats off to you, Mike Tomlin. And hats off to you, Terrell Austin. Let me just say this real quick as we push towards talking about Detroit, and I'll let you go. All this talk about fire Mike Tomlin. I was at that Buffalo game, and I heard the chants. They was right near me. I even tempted to chair, to get in there myself. But no, I'm being serious. I want Steeler Nation to and critics and media to understand a few things, that it is okay to say that a man who has coached this team for the last 18, 19 years, he his time may be over. It's okay to say that, and it's not because he's a bad man or a bad coach. It's just, some of the things that we wanted to see from him and need to see from him in order to give us hope that he's going to be able to orchestrate a season where they don't collapse at the end and they get to the playoffs and don't lose a game in the playoffs, don't lose in the playoffs, but they win. There's some of the things that we needed to see from a Mike Tomlin team that we have not seen. And what we were seeing these last 8 years and the times that they made the playoffs is the same story over and over again. And that what bothers me. And that would be my only reason for joining the cheers of saying fire Tomlin or asking him to resign. Anybody gonna fire him, but asking him to resign and move on. Because if you're going to be stubborn and bullheaded so much so that you just think that you are right and that your system or your philosophy of how to play the game is not wrong, meanwhile, you're losing and you're collapsing at the end of the year and you're getting to the playoffs and you're not winning games because you just won't change your philosophy, you won't change your schematics, then it's time for you to go. If you're not going to do that, then we have to say, hey, it's best for us to move on. Let us bring not necessarily a fresh voice, but a fresh vision, right? It's not that his voice he's lost his voice in the locker room or he's lost players. He's never going to do that. This dude is a father figure to them. He's a great leader of men, but it's not about his leadership. That's the issue. It's about his X's and O's. And so what I want to say to Steeler Nation is, I'm grateful that I have seen, and I'm critical, but I have seen these last 3 or 4 weeks where he is changing. And that's all you can ask is, Mike, stay progressive. Stay cutting edge, man. It makes no sense for you to be in your 50s and you to be that stubborn and bullheaded that you won't change your ways. But he's not done that. He's not done that. That's why I'm saying, hey, man, we might as well go ahead and rock with him. If he's going to keep changing, he's going to keep evolving, and he's going to keep staying cutting edge and making sure that his schematics are not, this pleading insanity thing where we just keep on doing the same old thing, expecting different results. If he's going to keep evolving and keep changing, keep trying different stuff and giving his players the best chance to win individual matches or win victory in terms of team game, then, hey, man, keep Mike Tomlin and let's ride with him. As long as he stay progressive, I'm good. I just don't want to see him get to the point where he start acting like an old man, where it's like I am who I am. I'm just gonna stay who I am. I'm just gonna do what I keep on. I'm just gonna do what I've always done. No, man, miss us with that. If you want to be like that, then go to New York with that foolishness, or go to somewhere else. Go to Tennessee, or go to Oakland somewhere, or Las Vegas. But we don't want that here in Pittsburgh. We need to stay progressive. We need to stay cutting edge. We need to make sure that our schematics and the philosophy of how we play the game is in line with what the game is being done today, because we see that has been successful. No greater example than the Philadelphia Eagles, who believe in running the ball and playing defense. That's always been a formula to win an NFL Super Bowl. Run the ball, play defense. We did it 4 times with the Steel Curtain. We did it with Bettis and the defense and Willie Parker and the defense in 05. We did it again in 08. Other teams have done it, be it the Seahawks, run ball, play defense with the Legion of Boom, be it Tom Brady, in his latter years, even with that Tampa Bay team, he won a Super Bowl. Run the ball, play defense. That's been the MO. But Philadelphia showed us that you can run the ball and play defense, but you can run the ball in a non-traditional way. You ain't got to always line up with an I formation with a fullback and a tight end and just run the ball to the A gap, the B gap, the C gap, or pitch or toss. There's different ways that you can run and be creative and run to keep teams off guard, to keep teams on their heels. And Monday night, you've seen that. You've seen the Steelers be more creative in their run game. They stopped trying to run it with that 6 offensive lineman stuff because we know, the teams know, when you bring in that 6 offensive lineman, 9 times out of 10, you're going to run the ball. Okay, so how about we do this? How about we go to 11 personnel, which means 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 pass catchers, and let's run the ball there. That's what they did on Monday night, and it was successful. That's how they was able to run for over 100 yards, because they was doing different things in order to keep the team guessing. So, again, back to that, Mike Tomlin, again, like I said, if he's going to stay progressive, man, then I'm rocking with Mike Tomlin. I just don't want him to get stale. I don't want him to get stale. I don't want him to be set in his ways. If I could tell him, if I could talk to him, I would tell him, man, stay cutting edge, bro. Stay cutting edge and stay fresh. So, all right, so that's my spiel, with the Mike Tomlin thing. Again, I'm good with him. I'm good with him. Long as he keeps doing what they're doing. I hope they get to the playoffs and they don't go back to reverting to doing, stuff that they used to do or whatever. I just hope that they keep evolving, keep working, keep the team fresh, keep the schematics fresh, so that can't nobody be guessing like the stuff we've seen in the past where teams be like, we knew exactly what they was going to do. We can't have that. Can't have that at all. All right, this week, as we wrap this up, this week the Steelers play a big game in Motor City, in Detroit. They're going to Detroit. It's a 4:25 game on Sunday as they play the Detroit Lions. And y'all, the Detroit Lions, they've had some issues this year, but they are still a legitimate team. They are a force on both sides of the ball on defense. They got that boy Aiden Hutchinson, that defensive lineman. That boy is a monster, man, from Michigan. And so, they're gonna have to contend with him to be able to score some points. I forgot to mention another highlight from the game on Sunday on offense was the offensive line. Really played a great game with the run game and the pass game. And kudos to the 4th string left tackle, Dylan Cook, who started in place of Broderick Jones, who was hurt, Andrews Pete, who was hurt, and also Calvin Anderson, who was hurt. And Dylan Cook stepped in and he played a really good game. I mean, gave up no pressures, none of that. Played well in the run game. Yeah, he was a highlight for sure. But this week he got a big test because Aiden Hutchinson gonna be on that side, and so he's gonna have to be able to have his game up to par to be able to stop that young guy who is really good at rushing the quarterback and stopping the run. They got major players in the secondary. And Branch, the safety, he's an all-around safety. He plays safety. He can play corner, slot. Ryan Branch can do it all. I think he's still playing. I don't know if he's hurt or not, but if he's hurt, then, hey. But anyway, they did sign a couple former Steelers. They signed DeMonte KZ to play safety, and they also signed Arthur Millette, who used to play for us as well, a corner, nickel corner to play for them. That plays for them. And then they got Iowa linebacker Campbell in the middle. He is a beast. I mean, Campbell was really good, and so he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Steelers might do some things to get him in some mismatches. Maybe try to get him locked up with Gainwell. He's really good, but he may not be able to keep up with Gainwell. But on offense, that's where they got the juggernauts. Yeah, this is where my concern is. This is why I say this game, even though that Miami game was a good game, the Steelers played a very dominant game. But this game against the Lions is going to be a telltale sign because the Lions again are loaded everywhere on offense. Their offensive line, they got some injuries, but they still have arguably the best offensive lineman in the league in Penal Sewell at right tackle. Then, the line, I mean, the running backs, again, they may be the best duo in the NFL, but Jamar Gibbs is definitely a top 3 running back in the NFL. He is 4.24 speed, legit. He can hit a home run from anywhere. He can score from anywhere in any way. It could be a run, it could be a screen, it could be a swing pass, it could be a route that he runs from the wide receiver spot. Because when he was at Alabama, he did run routes as well as a wide receiver because they just try to get him in mismatches. So he is a force to be reckoned with. And then, you chasing him around all game because he's so fast, and then get popped by Montgomery, your other running back, who's just a bruiser. It could be a long day. And if you think they're good at just running back, no, let me tell you. I mean, Jared Goff is their quarterback, and Jared Goff is serviceable as a quarterback. But let me tell you, they arguably also the greatest wide receiver core in the league too, because they got Amon St. Brown, who is legit. Amon St. Brown is, again, to me, top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. A lot of people compare him to Hines Ward because he can block, he catches, he does all the dirty work. He catches touchdowns. He can catch you. He can beat you deep. He gets you possessions. He can beat man. He can beat zone. He can just do everything. Amon St. Brown is a legitimate wide receiver, and one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. And then on the other side, they got that other boy from Alabama, Jameson Williams, who is just fast. 4.2 fat B. He's fast, and they do similar stuff with him that they do with Gibbs. Screens, wide receiver screens, things like that, drag routes or deep route stuff to try to take advantage of his speed. The Steelers are going to face a speedy team on Sunday because of the 4.2 speed of Jamar Gibbs and Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams is his name. And so, on offense, it's going to be a stiff test. And so this is going to be right here the telltale sign of whether or not we the fans believe the Steelers are maybe contending Super Bowl team. Let's see what they do against the Lions on Sunday, and we'll come back next week and talk about, are they pretenders or contenders? We'll talk about that next week. But it's going to be a good game. Again, it doesn't matter if they lose, just so, some of the playoff scenarios. The Steelers could actually lose the next 2 games against the Lions and the Cleveland Browns. And if they beat the Baltimore Ravens the final game of the year, they win the division. So, like I said, their destiny is in their own hands. They can sew it up before they get to Baltimore by winning these next 2 games, and Baltimore losing at least one against New England or Green Bay. And so, and I think that's likely, that they can lose one of those games. We need the Steelers to take care of business and beat Detroit, beat Cleveland. That way, that game against Baltimore don't mean nothing. Because here's my thing. I don't want them to play Baltimore the final game of the year, and that game means something. And here's why I say that. I don't say that because I'm scared of them, or I'm scared, they might win and, X us out. I don't care about that. We can win that game, but because those games are always brutal, we can win that game and mess around and get injuries and be hurt going into the playoffs that might cause us to lose a playoff game, right? The game we just played them last week, look at all the guys that was hurt as a result of that game. I mean, we had guys who was, concussions. I mean, Washington, James Pierre, all these guys had concussions and injuries from that Baltimore game, man. So I'd rather them just sew everything up prior to the Baltimore, the end of the year game. That way we can rest guys in that game and not have to worry about, losing people because of injuries. Again, like I said, the Steelers control their own destiny. They just got to win. Just win, baby. That's all. Just win. Beat Detroit, beat Cleveland, and hopefully, the Ravens lose one of those games again against, New England or Green Bay, and we get a playoff game. We get to go to the playoffs and have a playoff game here in Pittsburgh, and we'll see what happens from there. And I think if they beat Detroit and beat Cleveland, then that says a lot about, their capability of not only getting to the playoffs but winning in the playoffs. Because if you beat Detroit, then I think everybody need to get on the bandwagon and say this team is dangerous. So we'll see. We'll see what happens on Sunday again against Detroit. Hopefully the Steelers win. Hopefully they beat Detroit again Sunday, 4:25 game, and we'll come back next week and recap this game and talk about hopefully a Steelers win in Detroit. All right, just a couple quick things. Just to announce that injury-wise, Derek Harmon, the rookie defensive lineman, he's back. Mike Tomlin said that he will play on Sunday, so that's big. We don't know about T.J. Watt. Some people are speculating that he might play. Some say he might not play. They might give him another week to be off. But, I mean, if he could play on Sunday, they're going to need him, because if Nick Herbert can't play because of his hamstring, it would be really, really helpful if he could play and physically able to play, because, his health comes first. But if his health is okay and he's able to play on Sunday, then, that would be a big boost to them and help them and aid them in their endeavors to stop the run, but also to slow down that Detroit Lions offense. So we'll hope for the best. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for joining me for another edition of Huddle Up with John, talking Steelers football. Again, the Steelers' big win over the Miami Dolphins, 28-15, and we'll see them play the Detroit Lions on Sunday in Detroit, 4:25 game. Don't forget, it's 4:25, not 1 o'clock. So you can go to church. Those of y'all who go to church, get you something to eat, get home, and get in the warm, and get ready to watch the Steelers play on Sunday afternoon. All right, y'all. See y'all next week. Go Steelers. Peace.